Hello everyone, thank you for watching and listening to this video. This presentation is part of the Art and Humanities Seminar Series organized by the Red Cross Museum in Geneva. I would like to share with you my PowerPoint presentation. The title of my speech today is Remaking Art as an Aid, drawing on the aesthetics and ethical engagement of artists in post-blast Beirut. This presentation focuses on the art collectives and artistic creations that have emerged in the aftermath of the 4th August explosion. Some of the areas close to the explosion were a vibrant hub for all artists from different backgrounds, hosting extraordinary range of creative and cultural activities in Beirut. The explosion of Beirut's port hence attacked the very heart of the cultural community. More than 100 museums, galleries, and artist studios were severely damaged. Almost all the capital's theater spaces and venues were damaged and some severely ruined. The blast, therefore, did not only lead to physical, but an aesthetic destruction of the city. The current situation in Lebanon reflects the collapse of various structures. The devastating explosion happened amid the COVID-19 global pandemic and economic pressures rooted in the failure of the political system. Lebanon is also dealing with the impacts of massive refugee flows and high levels of violence in the neighboring country. The blast also sent psychological shockwaves through the city, generating widespread trauma within a population all too familiar with political crisis. In response to this multi-layered crisis, dozens of creative initiatives and many artistic and musical performances have emerged, shedding light on the crucial contribution of cultural and artistic initiatives in the aftermath of the blast. This presentation provokes reflection on a critically under-examined experience of artists in the humanitarian context. The motivation for this research comes from the fact that despite the huge impact of artists and cultural workers in time of crisis, there is a little recognition for their work and among policymakers, funders, and humanitarian organizations. The purpose of the research is to explore how arts and creativity reshape the humanitarian context and whether the work of artists can address humanitarian issues in ways that differ markedly from those offered by humanitarian workers and practitioners. As we read on the wall of a destroyed theater in Beirut, we want bread, education, and theater. The research aims to highlight ways in which art can act as a critical intervention in humanitarian context. To do so, I approach the emerging artistic engagements through the critical lens of humanitarian action. Humanitarianism is defined as the imperative to assist fellow human beings and to alleviate suffering without necessarily acting to defend violated rights. It is perceived to be apolitical, neutral, and impartial. The critical lens of humanitarian action, which I adopt, questions this presumed separation of humanitarianism from institutional politics. It also challenges the tendency of humanitarianism to depoliticize and dehistoricize the structural and political causes of the suffering it seeks to address. Following the blast, a group of more than 100 theater practitioners gathered over a conversation in a WhatsApp group and formed the Theater Relief Group Initiative. They made an open invitation called Beirut No Show Tonight and invited people to make a donation by purchasing a ticket. The call created transnational connection with the outside world. It found powerful online presence among theater global community and was supported by more than 36 international institutions. Farah Wardani, the co-founder of the initiative, says we need to preserve theater in a time when the city is losing its identity. Theater is the only way to safeguard the truth, to spread it, and to bring life back to our city. putting emphasis on the importance of protecting theater and culture in times of crisis, Karim Dakroub says we must do something because generally theater and culture are the first to be affected by huge crises and are the last to recover from them. Sharing about his motivation to join the initiative, Fadi Abi Samra says, I took part in the initiative because we don't want to lose the soul of the city. Because in the end, a city without theater, literature, and exhibition is a city that cannot breathe. The next initiative I would like to speak about is the Beirut Initiative. It was an initiative organized by Sukak Theater Collective in forms of providing relief grants for individuals working in the performing arts after Beirut port explosion. It was meant to support the existence and sustainability of the performing arts sector in Lebanon through direct monetary support to artists and practitioners who were affected on the personal and professional level. Marian Kortbani, a cultural practitioner and communication coordinator at Sukak, says at the time hopelessness had prevailed and many artists were considering to leave the country, we get together to create opportunity for artists to stay in Lebanon. We wanted to share our assets with one another and to transmit knowledge to emerging artists. In her view, it is the responsibility of the artist to create a system embedded in critical thinking. In a country like Lebanon, where art is always carrying social and political impact, the art becomes a reflection of what's happening on the ground. At that level and in such times, the responsibility of the artist is to provide humanitarian institutions with creative imaginations. Artists shall keep creating and create new systems that embody the critical thinking. Drama Therapy was another initiative held by Sukak. Participants were invited to an embedded exploration to resensitize themselves and reconnect with their personal thoughts, fears, and desires. Placing psychosocial support and social and emotional learning at the heart of their practice, Sukak created a series of drama therapy sessions with the aim of releasing excessive tension and stress. The next initiative is the relief shows organized by Clown Me In. Clown Me In is a clown initiative co-founded by Sabine Shoker from Lebanon. They reach communities through street performances, and their mission is to offer people ways to deal with difficulties through art, laughter, and capacity building. Following the blast and through their global fundraising, they were able to provide direct relief support and of over $10,000, and they organized a 15-day comic relief tour to provide psychosocial relief in the most affected areas. Clown and activism may seem like an odd couple, but embedded in the nature of clown, in the spirit of joy and resistance to oppressive forces. The next initiative is the Lebanon Playback Theater. Lebanon Playback Theater uses ideas from the theater of the oppressed to enable participants speaking up and a chance to shape and telling their stories. The members of Lebanon went to street right after the crisis, helped cleaning the damaged building and providing aid. And further, they contributed to the art and creative therapies through Playback. The Playback sessions were organized on monthly sessions. They were organized online, and they were also provided to members of different NGOs who had been affected and were dealing with traumas. Rihla Ila was a street parade by Zairakun Collective. Zairakun Collective organized a number of parades and performances to open up a space for residents and neighborhoods and to create venues for conversation and platform for freedom of speech. it was very important in the words of Rami, who was one of the founders of the initiative, to have the communication with the street and for art to be very open and accessible to the public, giving the communities a chance to be involved. After the blast, the disappointment had exceeded. Everyone felt they wanted to leave the country, but crisis opened new opportunities. In thinking of art as an aid, Rami believes art embodies our values, rituals, and cultures. Art is not an aid, it is our essential culture. Artists permeate the culture of society, goes inside and helps society to find its culture, develop it, and criticize it. Without art, our culture is falling. Art is beyond aid. Art is a matter of letting the human circle breathe and build connection. At the end of the day, connection is the prerequisite of rebuilding and reconstruction. On the question about art addressing humanitarian situation, number of artists have shared their reflection. Dima Nashawi believes in a situation like Beirut, art cannot just be for the sake of art. Art in the end is a tool to make a statement against a certain political or social situation. At a time where truth gets lost due to the diversity of narratives, art remains the key of a genuine documentation to what is happening in reality and becomes a way to archiving the stories born due to the humanitarian situation. Mona New believes theater allows the audience members to sit next to each other without bothering about the identity of the people around them. It provides a democratic practice and a statement of activism. Farah Wardani believes art-based work helps building resilience and connection, as well as empathy among human cultures. Theater plays a big role. It facilitates critical thinking among the community and opens a space to think and share. In the absence of actual democracy in Lebanon, in the time where situations get more critical, theater and art create a democratic approach of gathering. The artists have also reflected on the challenges in times of crisis. The main issue will always be the funds. Marian Kurbani believes with limited number of funding bodies, the demand is always much more than what's available. Funders also have certain political agendas, which makes it difficult for artists to create a work of art based on their own interest. Restrictions set by COVID-19 integrating technology into performance, especially in a context of Lebanon where the electricity and network supply is very much restricted, are among the main challenges. Mona New believes we live in a culture that lacks support towards art. The problem is that art is perceived as a form of luxury. In her view, art is an act of self-expression and hence is a need and not luxury. Farah Wardani mentions about the human resource problems that their initiative was affected by due to the blast itself, and Hanan Haj Ali refers to the censorship and disapproval of the scripts when it comes to the theater practitioners. Art enabling reconstruction, the artists reflect. Rabi believes reconstruction happens when the artist finds a moment of opportunity in the moment of crisis. It happens when rethinking the future becomes possible. Art provides different types of thinking, different approaches and experimental tools. Reconstruction is about reconstructing social bonds. Dima Nashawi, reflecting on her work as a clown, says, reconstruct, laugh. What clown me is doing is reviving laughs among people through street performance. Hisham Jabber believes we are in need of rebuilding a new human before rebuilding a new city. We need to build a new culture and new mind. And Farah Wardani believes art is surely capable of doing so, of shaping new identities. Marian challenges the idea of art enabling reconstruction in her view, art enables deconstruction. And deconstructing idea is what is needed to reestablish the social standards. Deconstructing the ideas becomes the infrastructure to a proper reconstruction, which is needed for societies, especially in the current humanitarian situation. Reflecting on the reconstruction experience, Nadia Hassan believes a lot of reconstruction needs to be done on the psychosocial level, including trauma work and healing. Therefore, theater is such a critical site for the intervention. It offers a platform to engage in a conversational rather than confrontational manner. The collective act of creating also helps us to constitute a new world, a new life, and a new society. In Rami's word, reconstruction is about using artistic tools and methods to assemble a new world. It is about coming out of the crisis together. Reconstruction is about recreating a culture. Mona New believes art, as a matter of fact, is the closest experience of getting in touch with who we are and reconnecting with human beings. Rethinking artistic activism through a humanitarian lens, the humanitarian situation has witnessed emergence of new forms of arts. We see in the context of Beirut, with theater spaces destroyed, the city has become a stage and the performance has become a space for collective connecting of bodies to one another. Among the most important functions theater has performed in this context is to inspire and encourage empathy and solidarity, contributing to the individual and group elaboration of trauma and memory. We can notice that on the one hand, artists seem to have acted as new humanitarian actors, alleviated suffering, while on the other hand, they have challenged and disputed their government's policies or lack of in dealing with major sociopolitical crises. While artists have not been involved in conventional politics, such as advocacy and rallying, but they have established more horizontal relations of solidarity with marginalized communities. In comparison to the politicizing tendency of humanitarian action, almost all artists interviewed have shared about their political motivations and acknowledged the political dimension of their activities. In their views, humanitarian crises are embedded in underlying issues of poverty, vulnerability, and political failure. And doing art, more than anything, is about positioning yourself politically. In comparison to humanitarian organizations, artistic initiatives have created non-hierarchical grassroots or interactions that provide opportunities for survivors to act as an active agents. These initiatives have moved beyond the humanitarian action and have been understood through the lens of subversive humanitarianism, a kind of humanitarian activity which is driven by moral and political consideration. These initiatives would tell us there is hope for a new future, and Beirut's art would tell us how the city might be rebuilt. But let us remember, the artists today need more support than ever. Like everyone else, they suffer from shock, despair, and a huge sadness for the lives and spaces that have been lost. Most of the artists, they have been affected hugely and have lost their livelihoods and have been forced to withdraw from the creative sector. Let's remember, without artists, the city will not heal. As Alaminawi says, let us stand by our fellow artists so they can stand on their feet, so they can inspire us. Thank you.